again, welcome back, Commissioner Bailey. You are our chief financial guy, and I asked, how do our financial statements look?
Great. In good shape.
Okay, look great. That's always good. Great is good. Okay, any public comments on our financial statements? I think we just got a good review of our financial statements with a thorough breakdown from our audit. And again, considering everything looks good. Just need a motion to approve.
I make the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bailey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Harris. Any opposition? Any public comments? Okay, motion approved. Okay, our next item is a report by ARBC President. First thing is with the Office of Community Development and the ARBC Cooperative Endeavor Agreement amendment status. And just want to say in general that we are working through with that, and everything is moving. Sometimes it's a slow process, but it's just a process to account for the funding that we get. It's just the way it is when you donate that kind of money. People have to be accountable. So I'm not going to extrapolate on trying to explain the status as well as the Office of Community Development could. So we've invited them here to maybe if they are able to come up, Michaela, if you're available, or Gianna, Ms. Lathers, we sure would appreciate that.
Janaea Lathers, Louisiana Office of Community Development, Disaster Recovery. I do manage the mitigation funding within economic development and infrastructure, which is where the $100 million allocation falls. A brief update, and yes, it is a process. The 4 projects that are moving forward, the parishes are going to be taking ownership and in terms of implementation, working towards implementing those projects. So subsequent to ARBC's resolution saying that they would still be involved and provide some oversight and support, but the parishes will take over the implementation status. We have been working with Livingston, Ascension, East Baton Rouge, and St. James parishes grant managers who subsequently know a lot about the paperwork that is required for this level of funding. So each of those parishes are signing into their applications and turning in the documents needed for us to subsequently amend the CEAs. We do have LOCDDR analysts working with them to make sure that that paperwork is correct. We estimate about 6 to 8 weeks of implementation, and we do have a digital signing process that'll help move that status along once we get through our organization and Office of State Procurement, etc. So we are just glad to see some progress moving forward within these projects. We'll turn around with the applicants again and go over again in more greater detail the additional application needs to include like the H&H studies and such. I appreciate you all's coordination and acknowledgement, sending us messages when you all are working in collaboration with them to get these things done and needed for the application to be approved. Subsequent to any questions?
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Rosso, sure. Yeah, can you approach and state your name and where are you from?
John Rosso from Ascension Parish.
Oh, I'll get you lined up here.
Okay. Yeah, John Rosso from Ascension Parish. The question I had is, where would I go to find this listing of the parish projects that you defined by that's gonna be funded?
That's one of the things I was gonna reiterate, is the project funding, the $100 million, was an extra allocation that was given to the most impacted and distressed area during the 2016 flood. And it's that area fell into Region 9 of the Watershed Initiative, Region 9, which was formerly part of Region 7. The projects, let me back up. The unique thing about the ARBC, it's made up of local leaders, parish presidents, 7 parishes that are in Region 9. And those parishes have come together to decide, in collaboration with the board, looking at it holistically, on what needs to be done. And some of which is it'd like to be in a sequential process, but it will be a process depending on how these things. So, for Livingston's going to be taking on the lower Amite River. I understand that they're going to be reclaiming a part of the lower Amite that has been filled with sand and sediment, to bring it back to its natural bottom to help let the water get out. Another part of the project is in St. James, is taking leadership on the West Shore levee connection to fulfill the levee that's been put in place, which is a part of a larger project with POD and Army Corps of Engineers, and to add a pump station down there that's going to protect St. James Parish from all that water from all pump. Also, too, for Bayou Manchac, East Baton Rouge, I understand from the ARBC that East Baton Rouge, Ascension, and Everville are signing an intergovernmental agreement to do part of the Bayou Manchac projects, which would involve realigning the mouth of Wards Creek, where it's pointed east toward Amite, as opposed to pointed west toward the Mississippi River. And also removing some of the hot spots that are down on the Bayou Manchac to allow some of that water to flow out again to the natural bottom, not dredging anything wider, deeper, or anything like that. Just restoring the natural drainage. And there's one more project.
St. James.
St. James. I believe that's it.
4.
Yeah. So that's the 4 projects that's going to be implemented with this $100 million.
Is there a location where a description of those
Yes.
projects
Yeah,
and the
it's on our
scope of the
website.
projects exists?
Absolutely.
Under resolutions.
I'm proud to say that the ARBC website is very populated with a lot of information. It might take a little while to click on a tab or two, and it'll get you there.
But I can go to that website and find out the scope of those 4 projects and the funding that's been allocated towards them.
You can look at, under the ARBC website, it's Resolution 1181.
And in terms of like locations of the project scopes and funding, we are going to be updating our website, www.watershed.la.gov. All of our projects are on there. We have a GIS component to show the location, and you can zoom in and you'll get an update on that. We should be able to do that within the next week or so, sir.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Mr. Russell also wanted to say that the ARBC is continuing to work with the Pontchartrain Levee District on a broader scale for the Bayou Manchac project, flood risk reduction project. The parishes, I understand, they want to get something done and seize the opportunity with this funding opportunity. And considering the time constraints, that's why they're moving together on this on a local level from a regional benefit.
There's also a link to OCD's site on our website.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Any more questions for OCD in regards to the CEA, the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement, for the $100 million for Region 9 for the most impacted and distressed area? Okay, thank you very much, Ms.
Thank
Ladders.
you. Thank you
all
all.
for coming. Our next item under my report is the draft letter of intent status with ARBC and PLD. This takes us back to a meeting that the project committee, the ARBC project committee, had with the Pontchartrain Levy District back in July of 17, and it was to basically find some middle ground considering our districts overlapped, and in regards to the Bayou Manchac watershed, to see where we could work together. And I think we got a good plan forward, that we agree that this is a worthwhile effort, much needed project to do. And the letter of intent is a little back and forth on that, but I think in concept and our understanding is that we're going to continue to work together collaboratively, where, as I mentioned earlier, that the East Baton Rouge, Iberville, and Ascension is going to be part of the project. It's represented in their project plan description as phase 1B, and that's the Warch Creek and Lower Bayou Manchac. And they're going to be working on the LA 427 bridge, raising the height, that's Old Perkins Road, and the upper part of Bayou Manchac, and whatever else may be needed, we're going to work together to try to find the funds and continue that effort to fix that and implement that project in its entirety. And later on, you're going to hear on our agenda, we have engineers who represent Pontchartrain Levy District, and the executive director, Ms. Monica Garman, is here, and they'll shed a little bit more light on where we're at on that. Have any questions? Okay. Moving on our next item on our meeting agenda is going to be number 9. It's report by our ARDC Legal Counsel, Mr. Larry Bankston.
Thank you. Just wanted to make you aware of issue that's going on. Because we own a substantial amount of property and it's not occupied, there's always this possibility of there being people dumping. And we were contacted, and Tony turned it over to me. We were contacted by DEQ, in which there's been some dumping of abandoned tires at McHugh Road. I think I need authorization for us to have those tires removed and sent to the recycling, and also the possibility of doing some posting of no dumping signs. Those don't always work, but at least there's some potential in reference to that. The second issue that has been going on has been some issue with the Genesis pipeline. That pipeline crosses the pilot channel and goes across a substantial portion of our property. I've been working with East Baton Rouge Parish and Genesis, as well as some of the other contractors with the Corps of Engineers, because there's been some potential exposure of the pipeline, of some of the rainwater running off and causing potential exposure of that pipeline to the surface. So those are a couple of items that we've been working on in reference to issues that have come up. But I would like authorization from the board for us to proceed to have the tires removed and the possibility of posting, particularly in this McHugh Road area, because that's an area in which it's easy for someone to dump tires off in that particular area.
Okay, Mr. Mark Carroll.
I'm all for posting it, but Mr. Larry, if I was you, I would talk to DEQ. I've had them fund tire removal several times in Lewiston Parish, so instead of us spending our money, let the state spend theirs.
I raised that issue with them, and they did not appear to be telling me that there was any funds available, but I'll go back to them. It's not many, it's like 40 tires, but it's still, I think it's like $5 a tire to have them recycled, and so it can be expensive. So
Talk to the secretary.
okay, I'll do that.
And from what I've seen, litter begs more litter, so we, you know, if we don't do something about it, it's gonna just get worse. And, you know, what we've done is, we've taken it to the point where we'll put up a camera, even if it's simple as a game camera, that's a cell camera. Because proof's in the pudding when it comes down to prosecuting somebody and holding people liable. Commissioner Quinlan.
Yes, I'm going to add on to that, because that's what I was going to say. We need to see if we can contact Wildlife and Fisheries, see if they will go and investigate to see, and sometimes they set up cameras to find out who's dumping, so we can press charges. And that would be my suggestion. You can put up the signs and do all that, but if they're dumping, they're going to dump even more. We're up to 40, it's going to be 60 soon, and 80 and 100. So we need to have it investigated. So we can reach out to the Wildlife and Fisheries and just start a report of the illegal dumping. Thank you.
So Larry, on this issue, kind of cue us in on the status of this and what's going and what's being planned. We've got a lot of resources, and we deal with this on a regular basis in the local parishes with, you know, this kind of issue. We can hopefully be of help. Don't want you to have to take this on your own.
I will. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any public comments on that? Okay. All right, moving on our next item on our agenda is number 10 under old business. First bullet we have is going to be the Bayou Manchac Regional Flood Risk Project, and it's going to be an update. It's provided by a PLD consultant, McKim & Creed, represented by Ms. Kimberly Cool. Thank y'all.
I wish it was cool. It's cold.
Cole.
Good morning. As President Clark mentioned, I'm Kimberly Cole. I'm with McKim & Creed, and we're working with PLD for the Bayou Manchac Regional Project. I'm going to give a brief update on the project today. And what's a brief update without a brief history? So PLD's involvement with the Manchac region started with the Amy River and tributaries in partnership with the Corps between 2005 and 2012. A lot of the projects we're working on now came as a result of that study, and we've updated them. In 2021, legislators passed revised statute 56-1855, which in short allows us to get permits to clear, snag, and dredge Bayou Manchac, which is a scenic river. Before this passed, we weren't able to do any work along Bayou Manchac, so that is through 2026 we have to implement projects on Bayou Manchac. So following that, PLD issued a task order to us to kind of go through the old studies, update them, come up with a concise project recommendation, and work toward getting projects funded so we can implement them before that time frame. That was also requested through East Baton Rouge, Ascension, and Iberville parishes. So our draft report, which was released in 2022, evaluated several older projects from older studies and, as I said, re-updated them, remodeled them, performed cost estimates and benefit cost analyses. So the projects recommended were clearing and snagging of the channel, dredging of Bayou Manchac, dredging of Alligator Bayou, realigning Ward Creek, and raising the Perkins Road Bridge. At the time, the cost was $82 million. That was with a hefty contingency. As you remember, 2020, 2021, the construction prices really shot up a lot, so we were trying to be conservative. With that, we got a BCR of 3.25, which represents a little less than 80,000 structures that see benefit from the project. So that's the original report in a nutshell. Since that time, we've been working with the parishes and also just updating and refining our data. So we've reduced the scope of the upper portion, which is mostly Iberville and East Baton Rouge parishes. Originally, we were just trying to get the most benefit possible, but after we evaluated it, we realized we were destroying a cypress swamp. So we've refined that scope to eliminate destroying natural habitat, and we're able to see very similar benefit through our reduced scope. We've also modified the Ward Creek project. As President Clark mentioned earlier, we met with BREC, East Baton Rouge, and Ascension parishes, and they had requested a modification to that project based on a project BREC was already working on. So that's what's reflected in the image here. I know it's a little hard to see.
We can't see it at all.
Oh, I am so sorry. I'm looking at my screen here. I didn't realize y'all can't see.
Let me go
the-
see if there's somebody in the other room. See what's going
Well,
on.
luckily, the other two images weren't as important as the one that should be on the screen right now.
I have some. I'm really, that's why I started looking around, like, wait a minute, it was submitted, but it's not coming up on the screen. I don't know. Some of you know all of that, so. Can I just pass them out? Can you share them if you don't mind?
Share 3 right here.
That's good. I'm really sorry. That's why I started looking around.
We can share those 3 here.
I've got some more.
I think it is plugged in. I don't know.
You share? We'll go along.
So now that some of you do have the packet, the exhibit of the revised Ward Creek realignment project is depicted. And again, that came from recommendations from East Baton Rouge and Ascension parishes when we started coordinating with BREC. We've also received additional survey of the channel so that we can get more accurate cost estimate numbers to see where siltation occurs. And the new project cost is down to $65 million in total for all phases. And we're currently working on a revised report that'll address the revised scopes, the additional information we've received, and some modified benefit cost analyses. So since this time that we've been working on this project, we've also been authorized by PLD to start the permitting process, since we have until 2026 to begin implementing these projects, or we're not able to get permits for at least the Manchac components. So we're currently seeking permits, Section 404 through the Corps, Section 10, 404 through the Corps, a scenic rivers permit through Wildlife and Fisheries. Even though the scenic river designation is relaxed, we still have to get a permit from Wildlife and Fisheries to do any work on Bayou Manchac. And then we're also doing Section 106 permitting with State Historic Preservation Office. Depending on the funding source, I know particularly with LWI, there will likely be more environmental review processes that we have to go through. But in the meantime, we knew these were the minimum permits we would need, so that's why we started with these. As an update on where we are with permitting, we did submit a jurisdictional determination for the entire channel to the Corps for approval. Here we are.
There we go.
So that's a sample of one of our permit drawings. We've submitted the clearing and snagging portion of the project for approval at the Corps. We're finalizing our dredging permit, which encompasses the lower Manchac portion, the Ward Creek realignment with the new realignment as well, and the Alligator Bayou component of the project are all in one application, and that's getting ready for submittal. And now we are refining our Perkins Road Bridge raise and our Upper Manchac permitting based on revised scope to be submitted to the Corps for approval. We've also been authorized to start the servitude acquisition process. A big component of this, we have to remove spoils from the channel, and it's a scenic river, so a lot of houses are on it. Nobody really wants to compromise the integrity of the channel by placing any sort of spoils on the banks. So the more access we're able to obtain, the less the cost is going to be to implement this project. And that's because we're going to have to do some sort of barging to get silt in and out of the channel. If we can remove it from the channel sooner and begin hauling it away, that's going to bring the cost down. So we've performed an access study where we evaluated tracks along Bayou Manchac that would be most desirable to have servitudes along. We took several factors, including but not limited to wetlands, if they're present, if the site's within a floodplain, what's the elevation of the tract, are there structures on the tract, is it wooded, are we going to have to clear trees? And we summarized the most desirable tracts based on evaluating those items. And so the exhibit just shows one of the tracts. It is a BREC property, so I figured it was okay to show that one. And we've created a GIS portal for PLD that just shows all of these various features of these tracts, and their right-of-way acquisition team is about to start the process of acquiring construction servitudes or access servitudes. Again, that is to access, remove spoils, and potentially, if there are desirable tracts, we'll use it to spread fill as well, which will also reduce the cost. And as a reminder, PLD does have quick take, so we're able to implement the servitude process pretty quickly. Lastly is funding. So we've been tasked to evaluate funding sources. Obviously, y'all are aware of the LWI component because you're leading it. So we've received capital outlay money for this project. We're also pursuing other grants such as statewide flood control for the Perkins Road Bridge Raise. We've gone after BRIC, FMA. We'll continue pursuing those capital outlay, whatever we can to fund the remaining portions of this project. We've also started coordinating with East Baton Rouge Parish's grant consultant for the LWI component due at the end of the month. We're in the process of sharing our models with them as well as any other pertinent data that they may need to get this project funded through LWI. So we're going to continue coordinating with them. They're going to share any revisions with us so that we can update our models so that everyone's on the same page with what's being done and how it affects other phases of the project. And we'll work diligently to get this project funded by the end of the month. So that was brief. This is my email. If anyone has any questions or comments or anything, wants additional data, please reach out to me. I'll get you what you need.
Okay, do we have any questions? I have one question. Okay, talked about sharing the models. Are y'all gonna be able to share the model with Dewberry, who is in for our master plan, and with the other engineering company, HMTB, for the parish's intergovernmental agreement deal?
So Dewberry dropped off their external hard drive just last week. Week before last, I delivered that to Kimberly last week. They're in the process of transferring that. So yes, HNTB and Dewberry will have that. There'll be a disclaimer with that because obviously you can't continue to share the models without, but as Kimberly indicated, she did meet with the engineering firm for East Baton Rouge Parish who's going to be submitting for the Bayou Manchac portion just last week. And that should be ready tomorrow or the following day at latest.
Okay, we appreciate that so much, working together.
Well, the model's been updated several times, so we wanted to make sure that apparently there was some information that was put out there with an older model. So we wanted to make sure that you had the updated with all the revisions and all of the things that have been added to that over the last 2 years.
Yeah, we'd like to continue sharing, especially the Ward Creek portion. I know we just met with Breck a couple weeks ago and kind of realigned that project. We're not finished modeling that portion yet. We do have the realignment requested by ARVC in the model, but we haven't run the overflow channel yet because we were waiting on, there's a abandoned landfill and a historic site that we wanted to realign the channel with to make sure we were avoiding those tracks or portions of the track when with this project. So we're not complete with that remodel yet, but most of it is in there and is in what they're going to be receiving, and as we update it, we'll share it.
We sure appreciate that, and any model that can show a 3.25 benefit is definitely of our interest.
Well, actually, now that the cost has come down to the 65 million, that 3.25 is going to be increased even more. If you'll recall, I would say it's at least, I'm not an engineer, but looking at Brad and Mark and these guys, and Ed, I'd say at least a 4, if not higher.
We know that any work that can be done in the capital regional area that's going to impact South Baton Rouge, Edwardsville, and Ascension is going to be very beneficial, and we thank you for that.
We will provide the updated report once we've finished with it, since this is the first time anyone's hearing that the numbers have been reduced and the changes that have been involved. So McKim Creed is working on that. So obviously that August 2022 report will be revised and updated. As soon as it's completed, I will share it with the board.
Thank you. Any more questions? Commissioner Kulat.
Yes. President Clark and Director Gorman, as we work together, I guess one of the things we've been talking about for a while now, because it took a while to get it, are we somehow up against a deadline on the scenic waterway?
August 1st, 2026.
when that's not that far from now, so.
We're continuing to work on permits for that very reason. There's no reason why permits can't be transferred. We do it with Ascension Parish all the time, where
Yeah, I just wondered
one
if
name,
we
then,
needed
yeah.
any more legislation.
Yeah, I was
Oh.
gonna say similarly, like what was done in, after the flood, in I think it might have been 2021. If that could be extended, I've seen it extended for Cumby River, I've seen it extended for Pearl River, different places throughout the state of Louisiana. And, this is a dire need here in the capital region.
Yeah, just one of the things hanging out there.
Yes, sir.
Time passed by fast.
Commissioner Knight, did you have a comment?
It's great to hear you guys are actually bringing some money back. It doesn't happen very often anymore, and kudos to the original projection to account for just all the mess with the inflation and everything that's going on. That's fantastic. Have you guys looked at anything in terms of the history that goes on? Because, I mean, if you ever read the book,
Winding Through Time,
and all
I've read it,
those,
yeah.
You hear about all the backflow issues. Has there been a significant amount of research going on with that?
Yeah, we've actually been coordinating with Billy Williamson on that. He's reviewed our models. We've accounted for several design scenarios with varying tailwater conditions on the Amite, large storms on the Amite, large storms on the Manchac region. We've got quite a few scenarios we've looked into.
That's great. And other combined impacts and potentially other projects, and I guess that's why we're looking at the model and do various so we include it in the master plan. I think combined with some upstream detention and what you guys are doing, there can be some really good benefits. Thank you.
Yep, that's a good point. Winding Through Time by Mary Ann Sternberg. If you haven't read it, it's an excellent recapture of history on Bayou Manchac, and she's local. Any other questions? Okay, thank y'all very much for coming.
Thank y'all for the
Appreciate that.
opportunity.
Okay. Continuing under our old business, we have a report by the Water Institute. The Water Institute is our contractor for our LWI watershed coordination and also oversight on behalf of the ARBC of the ARBC master plan. And Mr. Darling, thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. The font on this gets changed when it goes from my computer to this computer, so I apologize if there's any sort of wonkiness on it. First of all, the primary thing that I've been working on for the AV River Basin Commission is monitoring the progress of the ARBC master plan. For the most part, trying to keep it on schedule. We've been continuing bi-weekly meetings between the ARBC Master Plan Committee and the Dewberry team. The primary goal of those meetings is to facilitate discussion and answer questions needed by the Dewberry team to keep the plan development on schedule. Since the last meeting, we've held 5 meetings of the committee, and the next meeting will be this Friday. Through that process, we reviewed the agendas and the minutes, reviewed the Dewberry team invoices, and submitted to CPRA for reimbursement. There's another one that'll be submitted to CPRA tomorrow. And there's a Dewberry invoice under review right now. I've attended public meetings in Livingston, Ascension, and Baton Rouge, and the next one is tonight in Clinton. Hope to see some of y'all there. And also attended a master plan project workshop on September 19th that I thought went very well. Another thing that I spend my time on for y'all is attending the Louisiana Watershed Initiative meetings, funding workshops, which are actually very beneficial. I've attended 6 of those. If you want any information on those, please let me know. I do download the presentations from those and put them on the file that Ms. Tony has, the drive that Ms. Tony has access to, and if anybody wants those, I'd be happy to give them to you. If you want to actually see the presentations, a recording of them, let me know and I can show you where that is. These folks back here do a pretty good job of putting those on. Mostly what these are is information about different funding sources and how to apply for them and what you're looking for in your grant application. So the font's a little messed up here. The Louisiana Watershed Management Plan, I attended a Train the Trainer meeting on September 4th, and again, those slide decks are available to you, and you're welcome to see them at any time. Recall this diagram that I showed you the last time I was here. This is the Louisiana Watershed Management Plan that is a part of your regional capacity building grant required by the watershed folks back here. We spent time with the Dewberry folks and with their consultant making sure that the ARBC master plan is legislatively mandated and scoped to the Dewberry folks also complies with this plan. We held a meeting, a group meeting on September 27th. Everything looks like it's going to be really close. There may be a minor little appendix or two here or there that needs to be done, but so far it looks like just about everything can be inside of Dewberry's scope. And Sam, please correct me if I'm wrong there, but it looks like we're good there. Upcoming LWI meetings tomorrow. There's an almost a full day workshop to develop Louisiana. It's a regional watershed plan development workshop. It's at the LSU Center for River Studies. The Dewberry team will also have something there. And then on October 16th is another one of the meetings for the National Flood Insurance Program Community Rating System. And then at some point in the near future, there'll be the Project Discovery Workshop, which we discussed a couple meetings ago. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Ms. O'Neill? Hold on. There you
Could
go.
you kind of give us a little minor update on what the other regions are doing or what they're focusing on as priorities?
The other regions, as far as I can tell in the meetings that I attend, are really working through that, this here, trying to make sure they follow the schedule a little bit more closely than we do because we have the master plan that's on a slightly different schedule than this. And they also attend all of the workshops. But I'm not really involved with them that much to know what they're doing.
So if I might try to explain, the idea is that rather than duplication of efforts during this limited time and limited resources with two paths that appear to be going in the same direction, is to try to, to see what combines and not. And if what we're doing for the master plan, it suffices for the Louisiana Watershed Institute Region 9 Watershed Plan, then we're going to be good. We can save time and save money.
Absolutely.
Any public comments on that? Any board comments? All right, thank you, Carmen. You're doing a good job. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We've had a pretty busy docket. We missed our last month's meeting due to Hurricane Francine, but it was a blessing that we didn't get hit harder than what we did, although some parishes did experience significant damages. And with that, those parishes, whether it's St. Helena, East Feliciana, or whatever parish it may be, if they're having some recovery problems, just know that there's other parishes weave together. At ARBC or 7 different parishes, we've been down this recovery road before, and we know how to connect the dots. We also have a good pool of engineers that we work with that can help. And we have certain agents that are on the board that are as good as anybody is when it comes to recovery. So if there's a need abroad for anybody in Region 9, any of the parishes that might need help, feel free to reach out to us and we'll try to help and with recovery from Hurricane Francine. But yep, we missed our meeting last month, and so we got a pretty robust docket here, and just moving right along. Next item is on our agenda under old business is a report from Dewberry. They're our consultants, engineering company that is doing the ARBC master plan, and they are represented by Mr. Sam Campton. Sam?
Right, thank you, President Clark. So yeah, as you mentioned, we missed last month's meeting because of the storm. So a lot of the slides here were the ones that were prepared for last month, and then we've added some updates. So could probably go for an hour on this because a lot's happening, and I think by next month we're going to have some real progress to show you, particularly on the master plan document, which is starting to look very nice. So on task 2, which is the data development. Back in August, we did a couple of days of field reconnaissance. As you can see there, some of the equipment we used there, we both shallow draft and slightly deeper draft boats that we used, and we managed to cover a lot of the river. Certainly the first day we started on the diversion canal, went up to the weir all the way down the main river to the lake, and then back up the Blind River. Was able to get that done in a day. The second day we went from Port Vincent upriver, and that was certainly a different situation. Even with the Mac Daddy of Go Devils there was only so far we could get safely. But during that, we did a good bit of field reconnaissance and certainly observed a lot of things, very, very useful. You can see there on the bottom right, Seth and myself, we sort of got out on the sandbars to really dig in the sand to really help sort of verify some of the data that's going into the sediment management part of the project. So very eye-opening. So some of the key takeaways that was really very, very noticeable. So there's a lot of very dynamic rivering processes going on there. There's a lot of, once you get upstream of Port Vincent, the river is moving side to side very notably. A lot of active erosion on the outside of meanders and a lot of deposition on the inside where you get these large point bars and that. And it was nice that we're seeing, I guess at this point there'd been quite a bit of low flow, and a lot of them sandbars were really starting to revegetate, and once that happens things speed up almost exponentially. Certainly a lot of woody debris upstream of Port Vincent, and generally we found that sort of downstream of Basin check it was all just sort of clay muck material, and upstream it was more sand. That sand really started to show at Port Vincent, and we're currently reviewing some of the historical data there to see whether that sand wedge is moving further downstream. So downstream of the diversion weir, it was very evident that the banks were stable. We didn't see much going on in terms of erosion and that, whereas you go upstream the diversion weir, that was one of the things that jumped out straight away. Is you only had to go a mile or so and you started to see significant bank erosion. Part of that was geology, part of that was probably just because of the altered flow on the river downstream. And it was very evident that part of the river upstream is where it has been widened historically. There's a lot of excavated material dumped on the banks, which certainly isn't as high as it looks when you look at the terrain, but certainly has an impact there. And as we went on downstream, further downstream, you got particularly in the areas with a very low velocity, that's where we see a lot of this float-on stuff that has plagued parts of the river down there. And so chatting with people and that have got a lot more knowledge of the swamps and that than me, it's amazing how that's changed things for the worse. So we've got some photos here that were provided to us by Go Devil boats, and just looking back in '96 how it was a swamp to the untrained eye. The photos on the right look like a nice healthy ecosystem, but that is quite opposite. You got this float-on has gone in there and changed things. So we're going to look and just see if we can get some ideas of what may have caused that over the years. So there's definitely something we're going to have a look at. But it's quite shocking the the difference in the quality of the swamps down there. So key takeaways. So around the diversion weir, it was very, very evident, which we'd seen to a certain extent, but being out there on the river, we had some fantastic technology, just having big screen TVs and sonar and that all at our fingertips there as we went along the river was fantastic. And going down the diversion canal, that canal is very uniform. You don't see any ups and downs in it once you get away from the diversion weir. And the main river is the opposite, it's very irregular. And just put together this illustration here, which really has been really shown what I've been theorising over the years. If you look on the main river upstream of the weir, you've got about 28 feet of depth. When you get immediately adjacent to that weir, the river jumps up about 10 feet. You get adjacent to the boat passage, you're all of a sudden up to about 7 feet of water. And I believe that's because all the energy is going down the canal, but the sediment's staying in the river. And from what we've seen on some of the historical survey, I think this was about 10 to 14 feet, I believe was the number, that this is increased compared to 85. So this is certainly one of the projects we're looking at, is the dredging of the river, as I think this is going to be the most, in my professional opinion, this is going to be the most bang for the buck with dredging would be in the vicinity here. Outreach and engagement. So we've got a lot done here. So back on September the 8th, we had our first public open meeting. This was the central region. We're in Livingston. And then on the 16th, we had a meeting in Ascension Parish. And then on the 18th, we had one at the Blue Bonnet Library for the central East Baton Rouge area. And the first two meetings, I believe we had about 40 or so people sign in. We had about the same amount on the central. One thing, I think a lot of people came in without signing in, and so we probably had a lot more than that at some of the meetings. And then it's actually going to be on Wednesday night, we have the Northern Region meeting. So this one was scheduled a couple of days before Francine, and so that meeting was cancelled and we're rescheduled for this week. So that will be on Wednesday. So if anyone can help with, I think we've shared the invites to that. If anybody wants to share that on their social media as their last minute to try and get people to go, that would be appreciated. So we certainly got some feedback. Some of you will have seen the poster boards that we had around the room that really outline the plan and some of the things that we're looking at, and FEMA CRS. And so these were poster boards that were around the edge of the meeting rooms where people could look at them and ask questions. And in the open houses, we performed the presentation, and we got feedback from people. We do have a website where you can go and add your comments. We've had a lot of people go and look at it, but it doesn't seem many people are actually adding comments to there. But there's certainly generally all good feedback. Certainly some people frustrated with studies versus boots on the ground projects. But generally these have gone good and got some good input that we are currently summarising. So task 5 and 6, existing conditions and projects. So back in August, we did receive the 95% plans for the Comet River Diversion Canal. So we are currently getting this into the model for what we're calling like a phase 2 baseline. We've got the current baseline, which is how things are now, and then the projects that are immediately being performed at the moment. And so we're getting this coded in. The key thing is we've got the diversion structure, which is the main feature in terms of hydrology. So we're currently getting that into the models to help the baselines. And then we're currently looking at some projects through a parallel task order with LWI, where we're looking at, we're modelling the new river pump station concept and developing an integrated basin model there. And then detention in the upper river. So as I know many of you have seen us present on the Darlington Reservoir over the years, we're looking at alternative locations at the moment. There's some sites upstream and downstream where we could do something of varying scales. And in my opinion, this is the way to do the biggest biggest benefits throughout the basin, is detaining the water upstream so it doesn't get to the downstream area. And so we are looking into these, and we will evaluate them, and these will be some of the recommendations in the plan. I've been looking at the future rainfall projections, and it doesn't show a whole lot. Looking at the data that NASA has prepared on future rainfall for the year 2050, it looks like we're going to get about 1.5% increased rainfall. So not a huge amount, but we are looking at both the future conditions so that we can see the no action plan. Areas of concern, so this again is where we're getting that input from the public. So far we've had people give their thoughts, but we're not getting too many filling out the website. We're going to work on trying to get some more input there. And we've been having these master plan committee meetings, which I think have been very, very useful. A couple of weeks ago, we did the project review workshop where we went through the list of projects. I think we've got about 15 projects listed at the moment. And we discussed the long and short-term potential, the mitigation of negative impacts associated with some of these projects, and the public interest. I think one of the key takeaways from this is there's so many projects that you can do, but that water has to go somewhere. And so inevitably you do something to help one area, it's going to move the water somewhere else and impact negatively. This master plan and this commission is that opportunity to come together as a regional agency and put these projects together where one may not work on its own. Combined with another project, we could make these things work without harming anyone. And so I think that is the key thing of this board with this master plan, is how we can put these projects together in combinations that are going to do no harm and overall have a huge return there. So we're going to be looking both short and long term. We discuss the public perception of projects as well as sequencing. So some projects may be dependent on another to avoid any impacts. So mitigation banking, we will have a big update for you at the next meeting. So we've been reviewing these potential sites. A lot of the sites that we've been looking at are in very good condition, and so they don't make an ideal opportunity for mitigation banking, but because it's good quality already. So we've really been moving our focus to the upper river, looking for areas of potential conservation. And so some of the expected milestones for next meeting. So by this time next month, we will have all of the initial public meetings concluded. So just to recap, the meetings we've had so far have been to talk about what we're doing for the master plan and get input from the public. The final meetings we're going to have, the public meetings, will be next year, and that will be rolling out the master plan and presenting it to the public. So we're going to have some detailed summaries of the ordnance findings and how that ties into the community rating system. We're going to have the existing condition baselines and future without project baseline. We'll be able to present that to you in more graphically, and the results of projects assessments. Mitigation, as I mentioned, we'll have an update as well as the governance and funding summaries. So with that, I'll just open up if anyone has any questions on the progress of the master plan today.
Any questions? All that, no questions. You must have done a good job. Miss O'Neill.
I would just like to say how much I appreciate your availability. If I have a question at any time, I can call you and you're right there to answer.
You're welcome. I'd much rather engage with everyone early on than once we get to reviewing it. And actually next month we should have some good material for you guys. If anyone wants to look at a draft review, that can certainly help us wrap this all up by the end of the year with the first draft. Thank you.
Okay, Sam, I have a couple questions. Okay, slide 4. Picture number 3. Okay, I don't know if you realize this, but something in this slide is very unique that you don't see often, and it's going to be of interest to us in the future. Talking about the upper Amite and abandoned sand and gravel lines. Slide 3 there, that picture 3 is some kind of vegetation that's growing in sand.
Yep, and that was noticeable. Like, we was looking at, and trying to figure out where the ordinary high water mark was, and this grass, which I'm certainly no expert to know what it is, this was below the ordinary high water mark from what we could tell.
I think it's COs.
Okay.
But it's unique, and for restoration purposes, there's, from past experiences at ARBC, back when Executive Director Dietmar was here, they did some projects to look at restoration, and it was tough. It was really tough to get vegetation to grow in sand like that. So seeing that, doing it on its own might, simulate a natural process during restoration in the future. Anyway.
And actually,
That's
just
what
to
I-
note, in the very
Outstanding.
background of photo 3 there, if you can see the grass in the background, it looks like just a field, but when you get close and actually get in the grass, there is this stuff that's grown up a lot denser. But then you get down and you dig and it is just sand underneath, so it looks like it's doing great at restoring and stabilizing.
Exactly. The roots of the plant is what holds the sediment in place, and without that, it's just going into the river every time it rains. The other thing, y'all did a lot of work on the sediment and analysis up and down the river and everything, so you did not find any inflated hill splitter mussels.
No, we didn't. We did take. I shared some photos with you. We did find this mussel, but they was not them.
Very
ones.
good, very good. All right. Let's see. I like how the sonar that y'all use to identify the sediment, you know, the depths and stuff. That's pretty unique in regards to where to target the problem areas. When you have limited resources and limited time going in, you may find that just getting those little hot spots, as opposed to what's been done in the past, doing a uniform dredging type approach, which may not be necessary, that these little spots, if you get them, could help make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that image we had of the diversion weir, I didn't have time to incorporate it, but last night I got an updated rendering. We actually went back last week to get more detail because we're looking at there was some gaps there. So now we have a very high detailed image or 3D surface of that entire weir there. And so we'll show you that at the next meeting and some very good info there.
That would be great if we could share that with Livingston Parish as a attempt to go down that path with the lower Amite and removing sediment from the channel.
Yep, and we got some really good samples. We got, I think, 92 samples along the river. We've got some photos that you've probably seen in other ones where we actually had the clamshell that we've been dropping off the side of the boat to get them sediment samples, send it off to a lab. We actually did some verification in these areas, comparing what we got with the clamshell versus what we dug with a spade up on the sand there, and it all came out similar. So that tool's been working really good and got some excellent information on the sediment.
Real quick, just want to say, retention in the upper Amite was a big thing, and a lot of how this got started, with the Darlington Reservoir. You mentioned that you're looking at some other options, considering this option may not be feasible. I said may not be feasible. Could you quickly talk about these other options for retention in the upper Amite?
So back last year, Representatives Mincy and Hodges pushed through House Resolution 290, which required DOTD to investigate alternative detention sites in the upper Amite. Those two representatives at the time had seen the potential of Darlington. Just to recap that, in 2016, we're estimating over 20,000 houses wouldn't have flooded. And Denham Springs, on a 100-year flood, you're going to get nearly 9 feet of benefit there. And so knowing that's been an uphill battle, we've been looking at other locations. So one of the locations we're currently looking at is Highway 432, looking at that potentially for water supply as well as flood control. And then there's several other areas downstream, as well as Darlington. We can also look at that as potential water supply as well, which would make it more attractive to the locals there. But we'll look at all different options on some of the tributaries upstream and downstream the river, maybe not even a major river. It may just be if we had a smaller dam downstream that brought the water down half a foot down in the main part of the river, down to a populated part of the river. Even if we could only bring it down 6 inches or so, that may allow us to do some of these major projects that would otherwise save 1,000 people but harm 10. If we can do something that offsets that harm in that 10, it would make projects feasible and everybody would win. But that is the only way to really reduce it majorly would be to detain upstream. You've got to put that water somewhere, and so we are looking at various options through a parallel task order that's informing a lot of what we're doing here.
Okay, thank you for that. And from a proactive position, just to let everyone know that the ARBC submitted a capital outlay request to do some of that, something similar to that, not necessarily of retention to the scale where you might create a dam like along Tangipahoa and Persequin or Jackson Bienville on Pearl River or Toledo Bend, but smaller scale. But the Amite River Basin Commission put in a capital outlay request for funding to look at the abandoned sand and gravel mines as an opportunity to maybe detain or slow down or meter some of that water, shave off the peak curve as it's coming downstream to allow the water that is downstream to move. I guess they're trying to get me to shut up. But anyway, like Commissioner Harrell had once mentioned that we're playing a game of inches. Inch here, inch there, and eventually you got a foot, and that could be the difference between life and property.
Yep.
Any comments? Public comments? Thank you, Sam. Did a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is LWI Region 9 Coordinator Updates Discussion. I think, Garvin, you covered that well. We're moving right along. We've heard from the Office of Community Development, who is administering the Louisiana Watershed Initiative for the state of Louisiana under the Office of Community Development. So I think we're good there. Amite River Diversion Canal Project. Yeah, Mr. Bankston, Council Bankston, can you expand on what's the latest, greatest on the Amite River Diversion above and beyond abandoned tires?
You there? The Amite Diversion Canal monthly meeting was held on September 17th. There was an update from the Corps and DOTD. Almost all the parcels of property have been acquired. This is all in your packet. The remaining parcels that are involved in are related to Brooks Lake, which is a diversion off the pilot channel. There is some relocations of utilities that having to be revised because of some changes in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer guidelines. The bridge status, LA 964 is 84% complete. LA 67 is 77 complete, and LA 19 is still under construction. In your packet is some of the utility information as well as a briefing that is attached from the Corps of Engineers showing the background and the pictures of the project status. As you know, Highway 61, US Highway 61 is complete, as well as the railroad bridge is completed. Mr. Marino, to my right, is involved with the negotiations with Florida Gas, and he will give us a brief update on that.
So the fun is never ending with Florida Gas. On the main relocation, they had replied to some questions from FERC about the project, which they did, I guess, several weeks ago now. Haven't heard more recently on what the status is on the FERC approval there. Brooks Lake, Florida Gas now is one of those utilities that's going to have to be relocated. So we're day one, right? So we're going to have to probably do some depth of cover survey, that kind of thing, to figure out exactly what has to be done, figure out what to do, and then see what kind of permitting is necessary for that. So it was a little bit disappointing to find, well, a lot disappointing to find out that Florida Gas was going to be impacted by Brooks Lake, which was previously thought not to be the case. Beyond that, White's Bayou, there's a cost estimate for the Florida Gas aspects of that. That's still with the Corps of Engineers to approve, then we should be able to move forward with that for design. So what has to be done with Florida Gas, again, there depends on what's figured out through the design process.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Harrell. Commissioner Harrell is representing the Amite River Basin Commission on the Amite River Task Force, and I got to give kudos to the Amite River Task Force for catalyzing and prodding along these contractors and helping keep the course and move this project along. Commissioner Harrell, can you give a little comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Larry. Why are we just now finding out about Florida Gas in this new location?
Can you hear me?
Well,
we don't know. They had to do some more investigation or modeling at the core, and they came up with a very different answer. So as to why, that's a question for the core.
So, look, this is the core issue. Correct. Again, another core issue.
Yes, it's a core issue.
Let me, if I could, let me give some brief history about Brooks Lake. For the longest period of time, as the pilot channel goes into and spreads out, Brooks Lake was thought to be unnecessary. And there was the work at Brooks Lake. There is a Superfund site just south of the canal, and the concern was that the water flow would go into the Mississippi River, but you needed some type of levee, in effect, to make sure that that water did not continue to flow south and would go into the Mississippi River. The longest period of time, the commission has asked DOTD, the Corps, can we do away with Brooks Lake? Is there some other alternative? It's kind of, if you know where the state police training facility is, that's that general area of that. So for many months, the Corps was telling us, well, we weren't sure whether we needed to do it, and then they started examining it more, and then that's what this has ultimately resulted in, this awful delay. Now, the question I have, I don't know the answer to this, would the project be operational without this? Could it provide service? Because if anything that we know now about how long FERC will take, this could add 2 years, in my opinion, to the ultimate overall project. So we should be examining everything that we possibly can to see whether or not that's a possibility. But Mr. Harrell, that's the history of Brooks Lake.
And I understand that. So if we have to do more there, and I know that moving the pipeline is going to cost a fortune. So what concerns me is we won't have Congressman Graves in January to go fight for other funding. This is ridiculous. This should be criminal. It really should. The lack of, I'm not going to say what I want to say, but the Corps needs to be, someone needs to address that a little more. I know you really can't do anything with them, but this is ridiculous. That's it. Thank you.
I did want to add this one thing. The impact of this is scour with respect to Florida Gas. And so as currently designed, it's supposed to be a free flow sort of a thing, as he was talking about, Larry was. But now the scour is deeper than is acceptable with respect to the Florida Gas pipeline. So that's why it's having to be looked at. So it makes it sound like it's hard to, expect that they'd be able to operate this thing as a free flow without dealing with the pipeline relocation. But I mean, there's more work to be done before answers are had.
Commissioner Rayford.
You know, we talk about abandoned tires and stuff like that, but, you know, it's sad to see the situation that we have out there. We spend billions of dollars on this drainage improvement, and we have not had one opportunity to try it out to see because of the delays that's taking place by the Corps. There's no question about that. They're responsible for this project, and I don't disagree with Mark's comment or Commissioner Harrell's comment. I mean, it almost is criminal because we're spending more and more money, and quite frankly, I think the pit's gonna dry up on money-wise, and then we're gonna sit there with a project that doesn't function, that we spent years and years and years on to try to get some benefit for our parish and the surrounding parishes. It's a sad day for that situation.
Not to mention the taxes that the taxpayer that live in these parishes have paid for several,
20 years.
20 years.
And the disasters we continue to experience.
And the disasters. And perhaps the integrity of the channel and what it might be when it is time for it to function. Commissioner Rayford.
I certainly have a lot of concerns about that. I'm not an engineer, but I've had a bunch of them look at that type of situation. And I've been out there for 2 or 3 days over the last couple of weeks, just looking at the embankment, how that's being installed. Lord help us.
It would be a good place to teach some classes on erosion and bank stabilization and so to speak for civil engineers. Good case study. Any public comments? Commissioner Harrell.
I think maybe the impacts you're talking about is not near as important as the emotional impacts from all the citizens. And that's what the Corps needs to step up and realize, that it's been very tough on the people here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clayton.
Yeah, there's no need for me to pile on. I mean, Commissioner Rayford and Commissioner Harrell said it all. I mean, there's no reason to pile on. I mean, we can sit up here and bang our fists in frustration, but it is what it is. It's a sad situation. And it continues. This is part of the problem with, bureaucracy and everything else. I mean, what do you say? And I think that's what energizes this commission to move as quick as possible to get things done. Somebody has to. Somebody has to. Thank you.
Okay. So, back to our agenda. There's no more comments. Okay, we're looking at number 11, new business. We have an amendment 1 with the ARBC Dewberry contract. Have the board members been able to review that contract? Okay, good deal. Need any public comments on the amendment to the ARBC Dewberry contract? And that, to remind you, that's for our master plan. Hearing none, could I get a motion to approve? Commissioner Harrell, Commissioner Bailey. Any opposition? Okay, motion passes. Next item on the new business is to approve a 1-year office lease agreement for the ARBC office located on Sherwood Forest in Baton Rouge. Do I have any public comments on that? Any board discussion? Okay, all I need is a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bailey and seconded by Commissioner Harris. Any opposition? Okay, motion passes. 1 more year at
Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest. All right. right, moving right along, and, we have, general and non-agenda items. Anything anybody want to bring forward? Any public comments at this point? Mr.
Yeah.
Ross, Mr. Rosso, please.
Taking a few notes from this meeting, I want to say this. I had been involved in some of the drainage issues since 2016, more so since 2021. I have to say this, that I'm encouraged by what I've heard today. It's possibly one of the first times that I've been encouraged by some activities of some organizations. So I want to, first of all, compliment the commission here on its efforts and its activities, especially its scope of work, and I hope you continue on. We, the public, want some specifics. It's one thing to hear a lot of generalizations, but we want some specifics. And I have to say that I would encourage the master plan to include more specifics in its presentation. I attended one of the presentations. The public presentation was not impressed at all, and it didn't tell me anything. It was just too broad. It could have been done. That's something you could have done in a bar on a paper napkin. So I would encourage, because I heard some specifics about the master plan, I would encourage that to be presented to the public, because the public wants to see that. I do want to specifically compliment PLD and McKim Creed for the Bayou Manchac report. I'm most interested in Bayou Manchac, but we recognize, those of us in the public recognize, that Bayou Manchac is but a small piece of this. So don't think that we are overlooking the broader picture. But what it does show is that you can get a plan that is, as long as it's taken, for as I'm concerned, a little bit too long. It does have some specifics in there and it has strategic scopes, cost, and milestones. I look forward to seeing the schedules. That's the one piece of this that I haven't seen that we want to see, is schedules and accountable parties. So what's the schedules and the accountable parties? And I understood from Ms. Garman and Ms. Cole that we should be seeing a report on Bayou Manchac with those details in it shortly. So if I'm right, I'm looking forward to seeing that. And it's recognized that there's a lot of these other areas that you've got to take care of: permitting, funding, ancillary needs like access. So I've heard a lot about all of the pieces of it that should make for a successful project, if you can get the schedules down and the accountability. So I'd encourage you to do that. I do have a question, and that is the $65 million price tag that was put on the Bayou Manchac. Is that already approved by the Louisiana Watershed Institute? It is not? Okay. And you have any idea of what it's going to take to get the funding approved for it, or when?
I would suggest visiting our website, and I hate to say that like that, but we got 100 million for Region 9.
Yeah.
Which Region 9 extends all the way from St. Helena and East Feliciana, all the way down to St. James, everything in between. So we're trying to divvy that up the best way possible, but we're targeting the capital regional area. And we've come up with 4 major projects. So 4 divided by 100 million divided by 4, and a little bit more here and a little bit less there, kind of gets you around, it takes away from the 65 million in any one place.
Yeah, that's certainly an interest. You got to have the funding to get these projects done, and I realized that. But I looked at it, and what I was hearing was hoping that the $65 million price tag or somewhere around there would already been looked at and said, hey, it's feasibly expected that this will be approved in a reasonable amount of time. But anyway, just to continue on, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would encourage that the other projects that are included in the master plan provide some details as you've done with the Bayou Manchac program. Even though it's not fully completed there for us to hold people accountable and see schedules, it is certainly a long step in the right direction. And just as a last comment to you from a public perspective, the Amite project is really a dismal example of a project schedule. I don't think but it's obvious no one's, debated that. It's criminal might be a word that I could support, but I would encourage everything. Don't let that go to bed. At least try to get it finished. Good grief almighty, do whatever we have to do. But thank you very much for your time and your efforts.
Mr. Rossi, thank you for your comments. Any more comments? Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Thanks everyone for giving your time and serving on this board and helping us accomplish all these items and tasks that we're up against going on at one time with limited resources and a short schedule.
Move to adjourn.
Can I get a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Harold?